So at the end of your experiment, once you have synthesized the calcium oxalate, you will need to separate the calcium oxalate solid, which has formed as a precipitant in the solution, from the water. And to separate the undissolved solids, the calcium oxalate solids, from the water, we are going to use a type of filtration called vacuum filtration. You're familiar probably with gravity filtration. It just takes longer. This is a bit faster. We're going to use vacuum instead of gravity. So in order to do a vacuum filtration, you have to have what's called a sidearm flask, and it's got a little piece here that I'm going to hook to a vacuum. You're going to hold that together with a clamp to keep it from spilling. We're going to clamp it to this ring stand to hold it tightly. We're going to take this tubing and connect it to the vacuum. There are two things on the bench top. One of them is yellow and says VAC. That's for vacuum. The other one is blue and says gas. You don't want that one. You want the vacuum. We're going to hook this to the vacuum so that when I turn it on later, this will be pulling a vacuum. The next thing you're going to do is get this Buchner funnel that comes in two pieces, put it together and stick it down in and make sure that it fits tightly. Okay. Then we can turn on the vacuum and it will pull air through. That's how you know it's working, because you can hear it and it kind of hurts, so don't do that. All right. You have to pre-weigh your piece of filter paper so that you know the weight of it before you put it in here and pour the solid on it, because you need to know the mass of this calcium oxalate that you synthesized. The easiest way to do that is to know the weight or the mass of this filter paper beforehand, and then know the mass with you when you have the powder on it and subtract. So make sure that you get a mass on this before you put it in here. So then we're going to stick it down in here. And the first thing we're going to do is squirt a little bit of water on it and make sure that the vacuum is working. And the vacuum is definitely working, so we're in good shape. Then you're going to take your solution that you synthesized, the calcium oxalate, and pour it right in the middle of that filter paper. Try not to get it over on the edges. Try to keep it in the middle, because you don't want any of the powder to slip under the filter paper. So how filter paper works is, if you have dissolved ions, they are so small that they easily pass through the filter paper with the water molecules. But any undissolved solids are so much bigger than the holes in the filter paper, they don't pass through. So that's how we're able to separate the solid that's not dissolved from the things that are dissolved. And each time I'm rinsing with a little bit more of the water to make sure that I get everything in there, because you want to know exactly how much calcium oxalate you synthesized. So that was my third pass through. I'm going to do one last one. Now, if you're looking, you can see that a tiny little bit of that white solid did go through. And so that is a source of loss. You want to keep an observation out for that. Whoop. All right, once we have gotten the calcium oxalate solid separated from the water, we now want to make sure to get rid of all the water that's there, because if I were to take this off now and take a mass of it, it would be the mass of the filter paper, the calcium oxalate solid, and the water. And we don't want the water. And so in order to get rid of the water, we're going to use a trick called acetone. Acetone is a solvent that is very volatile, and it dissolves the water into it and then evaporates. And so it can quickly allow this to dry. And so we're going to leave this turned on for a while and come back.